Whether or not I would do it all over again, what I would rather do is go back and win 7 in a row against everybody else that's drinking water and eating bread. That's what I would want. And I believe that that would happen. And so that isn't what got me to this place.
Right.
Even if I did all that and I was a gentleman and I had class and I had dignity and I treated people with respect, they would have let me off. Nobody would have come after me. It was easy.
You know, in your book, you talk about how EPO saved your life. And I was always curious if you ever thought about the irony of the fact that EPO saved your life, but also may have been, at least professionally, your undoing.
Right. I insist it was the way I acted. That was my undoing.
Do you think there's a double standard between the way you have been treated and the way other athletes have been treated and accepted back into their sport and society? I'm thinking of A-Rod, for example.
I know who you're thinking about. I think about it all the time. I do think there's a double standard, but I'm okay with it. A-Rod didn't raise $500 million and try to save a bunch of people's lives. I mean, that's kind of the irony in this, but A-Rod was a baseball player. And so this story, what I'm getting at is this story meant so much more to society, right? I mean, and look, it's great when somebody hits home runs and you know, maybe does an event here and there for the Girls and Boys Club, but this story held a place in people's hearts and minds that was way beyond those guys.
What about the sponsors? So one of the things that I've been fascinated by is Nike stood by Tiger Woods through his own problems, different problems. Nike did not stand by you.
Right, because I had a lifetime ban. If what happened to Tiger, the next day they said, hey buddy, I'm sorry, but we're taking all the golf clubs. You can never hit a ball ever again on TV, in a term, ever. They would not have stood by him, I promise you.
Philip Knight, founder of Nike, was a great defender of Lance Armstrong. Did you ever have a conversation with him after all this happened about this?
So Phil's been interesting. He's been a great friend. And I have no association with Nike. I don't wear the product ever. I mean, but Phil has maintained, he's continued to be a great friend. I see him every year. We have lunch when I see him. We don't necessarily talk about this. I mean, I think he has his views on it. And at that point, it didn't really matter what, I mean, Phil is the founder of Nike and the really the spirit behind it. But if Mark Parker, the CEO, and the CMO, and all the, you know, the board says he's out, it doesn't matter what Phil thinks.
The conversation, however, took a decidedly different turn when I mentioned one of his other backers, the famed Silicon Valley banker, Thomas Weisel. Listen to this.
Tom's an interesting guy, and I'm not here to tell on people or throw him under the bus, but Tom hasn't been honest.
Was he complicit?
Of course.
In this?
But I'm gonna leave it at that. He just was. He hasn't been honest with the press. He wasn't honest in his deposition in the postal case. He's just not honest. But
how many other people do you put in that category?
Very few. Very few. He's kind of the yellow jersey when it comes to this.
Bold words from Lance Armstrong, given his own history. I reached out to Thomas Weisel last night. He said, I have no comment. The courts have looked at this every way to Sunday, and they have spoken. But that was sort of a bizarre moment in all this. Tom Weisel was one of his original financial backers, backed the team, perhaps probably more than any single individual. And clearly, Lance's views of him and perhaps his view of Lance.
There was an odd mix in there of remorse and yet insistence that, when he said, if I could have raced against everybody just, what do you say, drinking water and eating bread,
right.
Implying that he still would have won because they were all behaving the same way then if they all behaved the same way
There's still
today.
an element, it's funny, because as I said in the last hour, I do believe that he is sorry to those that he really went after in many ways, but there's an element of him where he continues to still believe that he is the victim when it comes specifically to the doping issue. You've spent a lot of time as a CEO who've had celebrity endorsements and others. What is your take?
Well, first of all, I would agree he has a severe case of victimitis, and it comes through so clear, it's unbelievable. I think as someone that is a shepherd of the brand, you would dump Lance Armstrong in a nanosecond. There's no way you could possibly put the integrity of your brand up against what he stood for. He lied, he cheated, and it was known to everybody.
I didn't get the Tiger Woods comparison at all.
So,
did you? Did you get the Tiger Woods? Did you get how did you think that Tiger was comparable to Lance Armstrong?
No, not on the doping issue.
But any,
clearly there was
what you do depends on whether
there was a scandal that involved him, no question. But not a doping one. But separately, let me ask you this:
personal scandal.
It was a personal scandal, but by the way, the entire public turned on him for years. Separately,
well, speak for yourself.
As an investor, would you give Lance Armstrong money? Because one of the interesting things is there are people that are now investing with him. There are companies and businesses that want to do business with him.
Well, there's a lot of places you can put your money, and the last place I'd put my money with would be Lance Armstrong.